Hello, everyone out there. Thank you so much for tuning in. We're excited to be here with Boston University Tanglewood Institute and From the Top to bring you a workshop on auditioning today. My name is Megan Swan. I'm the music director with From the Top. And if you've done one of our summer virtual live auditions, then you will have spent some time with me on Zoom doing exactly what we're about to be talking about. On this stream, we would love to hear from you in the chat section. Please say hello, tell us where you're coming from, what instrument you play, including your voice. And if you have any questions, please type those in there too. We'll try to get back to you right away. We're all on this chat with you. I'm so happy to introduce some wonderful folks in our field who are going to be speaking about auditions today. They're not only incredible musicians themselves, they've taken many, many auditions throughout their careers. Collectively, this group has probably heard thousands of auditions of young musicians like yourself. Let me introduce them to you. We have Dr. Erin Colwitz. She is the Director of Choral Activities at Northern Michigan University. Hi, Erin.
Hello.
Mr. Daniel Doña, who serves on the Viola faculty and is the Assistant Chair of the String Department at Boston University, and he is the Assistant Director of the Boston University Tanglewood Institute String Quartet Workshop. Thank you so much, Daniel, for being here with us.
Thanks for having me.
We have Samir Patel. He is the Artistic Director of the Hot Springs Music Festival, as well as the Associate Conductor of the Sun Valley Music Festival. Hello, Samir.
Hi, thanks for having me.
And we have Ivo-Jan. Ivo, did I say that correctly?
You did, perfect.
All right, I've been practicing all morning. And he is an esteemed member of the Viola faculty at the Shepherd School of Music at Rice University. So thank you all for being here. And let's just start off right off the bat. A lightning round of some questions here. So a student walks into an audition, which now walking in sometimes means pressing enter the Zoom room. What are the first thoughts upon this student's entrance? Samir?
For the auditioners, the first thoughts that go through my mind are, I'm just looking forward to meeting this person and wishing them all the success in the world. I think we have to start by just giving them an A and going from there.
Awesome. Ivo?
When I look at somebody coming in either on Zoom or into live audition, I'm always aware of the tension the auditionee must feel. And, when you're auditioning, know that the people you're auditioning for have been through the very same process themselves. We might be a bit further down the road, and our auditions were an awfully long time ago, especially in my case. But I remember that tension, and our empathy is with you. We want you to succeed, and we're there to help you play as well as you can.
Beautiful. Erin?
I think I agree with what everyone has said so far. We're just wishing for the absolute best, sending a bunch of positive energy into the air so that the student can perform their absolute best and really show us what they have to offer.
Great. And Daniel?
Yeah, same thing. Just the sort of energy that the student is emanating, and just trying to send my own positive vibes and be very reassuring, even if it's on the screen. Hopefully, just being as open to what they have to offer.
Wonderful. And another short answer here for all of us. What is the best audition time slot that a student, if they have a choice, sometimes there's no choice to be had, but if you could, what's the best time slot to pick? Daniel, why don't you start this one off?
I'd say sort of not sort of the first few slots, but kind of in the morning when the panel has gotten into the groove of listening, because as you know, everyone has to settle in, and if they've hit traffic, our energy, we're human beings too, and so our energy takes a while to settle in, and so we try to take that into account. but usually when we're in a groove and we're not too tired yet at the end of the day. So I feel like that sort of pre-lunch time, if it's an all-day situation.
Great. Samir?
I would agree
thought?
completely that I mean, sometimes you don't have the option, but if you do have a choice, maybe third or fourth or fifth, just as Daniel said, to give the committee some time, or the adjudicator some time to just settle in on their side of things. Yeah.
Great. Erin?
Yeah, I agree. As a singer, I would say late morning is probably the best. First thing in the morning, it's always a little bit hard to sing. But I agree that you want to let the panel sort of settle in a little bit and get their system down. So I would say not first thing, but maybe right before lunch.
Very good. And Ivo, are you going to disrupt everything and say
Yes, I
the
am.
opposite?
No, there's so many variables in this. I completely agree. It does take a little while for the people listening to settle in, and as you say, you might have driven in, and you've got to get your listening ears in. But at the same time, for each individual student, some people are morning people, some people aren't. If you're a morning person, go take the first slot. The first slot is not a bad slot. And if you don't have a choice, it is what it is. You just have to accept it. But we're all professional enough, those of us who are listening, to know the circumstances, and we don't have to think about it intellectually, but we just know. We sit down, we know what we want to hear, we know what we're listening for. And whether it's 9 a.m, that's early for me, or 10 a.m, it doesn't really matter. We just want to hear people play their best.
Absolutely. I'll say we've been doing our virtual live auditions this summer since we couldn't travel out to camps. And there are often days on Zoom where we're going back to back for 4 or 5 hours. And if you do get stuck in the middle slot, kind of the dreaded time, or if you don't get to pick when you're signing up, bringing your authentic energy is always going to sell, because we can read that and it re-energizes us. So I know when I've had, I'm on student 15 and someone comes on and they are just smiling and so happy to be there too, I wake up. It's a fresh new start here. All right, thank you all for the lightning round. Hopefully it caught you a little, on your toes there. We're going to go into a question from a BUTI student who wrote in, "Now more than ever, I'm interested in learning how to best present yourself online as a musician, whether that be in the form of pre-screening recordings or virtual auditions. What new challenges arise in online audition settings, and how can we as students anticipate them?" Dan, I'm hoping we can start off with you on some tips for students with these new online challenges.
Yeah, I mean, again, this is for a lot of us. This is new as well. Usually, in an audition in a live situation, you're warming up downstairs, and the stage is already set for you, and you have the setting. But one of the things you have to take into consideration is that you are your stage crew, right? And so you want to make sure that everything at home is set, especially technology-wise. We take all these things for granted, like bandwidth. If your brother or sister is playing a online video game while you're trying to play an online audition, that's going to eat into your bandwidth, and then we can't hear you to the best of your ability. So I think just preparing technologically at home and making sure everyone knows, okay, don't be on the internet for this 10-minute slot, because we need all our internet to get over to the audition panel. And then a lot of you are taking online lessons. So the same things apply with sound settings on Zoom, like turning on original sound, having external microphones. There are so many blogs out there that can help you with that setup. But basically just having everything, all your ducks in a row. You have control over certain things. Then the internet is its own creature. But just do all those things, and I think it'll be like a live audition after that.
Fantastic. I'll add in there right now something that we're doing, and I highly recommend it. Having that second source that you can record iPhones or Androids have amazing quality at the end of the day. So as you're doing if it's an online audition, have that second camera set up. So if something does go wrong, you've recorded it. You don't have to reschedule for another audition or, get stressed out. Oh my gosh, I don't know what happened there. Then you can just send it on over to the adjudicator. So that second source. Anyone else want to add into that to answer that question?
I think I've found in my online teaching, the quality of the equipment is so important, as Daniel said. And, not everyone has access to a great microphone, but perhaps your teacher has one, or you have a friend who has one. Look around if you can't afford a decent microphone, but it really makes a big difference. However, if you can't get anything, I've heard some great playing through a terrible sound quality. And even if the bandwidth isn't great and the sound's chopping in and out, you can still tell if a player is good or not. So get the best equipment you can. But at the end of the day, if you can't, and the recording isn't perfect from a technical point of view, we can still tell. So don't worry about that too much. Don't over concern yourself with these things.
Mm-hmm. Very good thought. Anyone on the non-technical side, other things, just because we're in these different settings, like Daniel had said, you're not downstairs warming up and walking onto a stage. Perhaps that was stressful for some students, but there's also other challenges that come with having to do something in your normal space. Anything, Samir or Erin, that come up for how to best present yourself?
I think that we can hopefully assume that most of the people that are judging things are empathetic in the sense that, we're not looking for your room to look like Carnegie Hall in the background, or we're understanding of this situation that we're all in, and that we're all just trying to do the very best that we can. So I think that a student shouldn't have to worry so much about, again, the circumstances in the background too much. Obviously, if there's a bed in the background, maybe take a moment and make it. But by and large, I think that you'll find that a lot of people that are working in this new realm of either virtual lessons or auditions, that you'll see that a lot of the times we're quite forgiving and empathetic for what the situation is at the moment.
Yeah, I agree. I would say exactly that. And I think, like Mr. Patel said, if you just make your bed, that shows us a little bit of an effort. Put on a nice shirt, I think that's probably, in this situation, that's really all that we're looking for. Just to show us that you're serious about what you're doing. But at the same time, we know you're at home. We know this is, a pandemic, and we just really want to hear what you have to offer. And I would echo that sentiment as well, that mostly we can hear, at least from a vocal perspective, I can usually tell when someone has a lot of talent to offer, even if there are latency issues, even if there are technological issues. I can usually tell when there's a voice in there, and I can usually tell when someone knows what they're doing. So don't stress out too much about the small stuff.
Yes, don't stress out. If we all stressed out right now, my goodness.
Can I add just one little thing? Another thought. In fact, it's almost an advantage doing an audition in your own home space because it's comfortable. When you go somewhere to audition, you're going into a space you've probably never been in before. So there's the nerves of being somewhere new. So I'd recommend anyone who's going to audition live or make a recording in their own space, practice it as much as you can. Dress up as you're going to do. Prepare. You can do it 3, 4, half a dozen times, just so you get really familiar and comfortable. Because the other side of that is actually performing in your own space can be quite hard because you're too comfortable there. So it's a mix of the two things, but in a way, it's an advantage, I feel.
Absolutely. Thank you. So we're going to move on to another question here, perhaps one that has the most misconceptions throughout generations of musicians taking auditions. It's how to choose the right repertoire. Every audition is different. Some you have assigned pieces, and many you are picking your own. And if everyone here has had a similar experience, there were times where I would have an audition. I thought I knew exactly what I wanted to play and why. My teacher had a very different idea on that. And my parents probably just wanted to hear something. Of course, everyone wants you to be successful, but there were competing ideas sometimes. So we want to dive into that a little bit. We're going to start with a short answer question here. What is the best piece? And this could be either a piece of repertoire that you've heard an auditionee play, or kind of the sentiment behind it that you've ever heard in an audition. Erin, do you have something to start with?
From a singing standpoint, there's a you want like a specific piece, right?
Either a specific piece or something that just really moved you in an audition.
There's a beautiful Vaughan Williams piece that I've heard sung on many occasions, and of course the name of it is actually escaping me right now. For some reason I've Toward the Unknown Region stuck in my head, which is an orchestral piece, but anyway. It's an absolutely beautiful piece for mezzo-soprano, and I sang it in college. So then when I heard this particular auditionee sing it, I thought, my goodness, and she just absolutely knocked it out of the park. It's for mezzo-soprano. It will come to me, I promise. As you get older, your brain starts to malfunction, especially in your 40s. But it's an absolutely beautiful piece. And I think Vaughan Williams particularly is he writes so well for the voice. So when people come into an audition with a song like that not only shows you off, but is really singable, then it can really knock the panelists sort of off their chairs.
That's great. Daniel, does anything come to mind?
Bach comes to mind, always. Just a lot, especially growing up, everyone wants to play the flashy pieces, the concertos, which are important, and we need to see your technique, but your real musicality and I think at all levels is just, if you're just honest in your playing of Bach, and that's always when Bach is well played in an audition, I'm there with them and I'm touched.
Awesome. Ivo?
Daniel sort of stole my answer.
Sorry.
The other players. No, that's fine. But I completely agree. Of course, it's lovely to hear something flashy, but I've been really moved by some performances of, I hate to say relatively simple, but purer music. And when you hear the artistry behind it, you hear a good quality sound, you hear great intonation. That absolutely, I agree, can be very moving. So, and I can't say anything specific pieces. It's different every year, but that's always a pleasure.
Mm-hmm. And Samir, if you want to both answer this and maybe start off with some more tips you have for students in picking rep.
Well, I would actually agree in the sense that when you play something like Bach, or even in my experience auditioning, I have to say that I think the older one gets and the wiser one gets as a musician, or more experienced, you start to form these certain opinions about how certain things should be played, like Mozart or Beethoven, for instance. But I have to say that recently I've been very moved and touched by a performance of the Beethoven Sonata Opus 81. Now, this is starting to get into the territory of late Beethoven, and the person performing was probably not even yet 18 years old. So already, one starts to think as a listener, like, okay, what's this going to be like? Are they going to fully understand this realm or not? But it was played with beauty and understanding of the music and artistry. And so I have to say that, and I guess this goes into the second question you just asked me, which is, whatever you play, you do have to play it with this sincerity and authenticity. And what I'm looking for is someone that is going to play a piece that they believe in. And I think that is one of the tricks as performers and artists, is that not everything that crosses my desk per se as a conductor is a piece that I love to death. But I know that part of my responsibility as a performer is over the course of practicing and studying is to fall in love with it somehow, to try to fall in love with it. And I think that whatever, someone playing an audition, if they show me that they believe in what they're playing and they're sincere about it, and they play it with an energy and enthusiasm and style and grace and all of that stuff, it makes me sit up in my seat. So I would say that whatever you choose, whatever you play, and it can even be something that maybe I've never heard before. It sounds simplistic perhaps to say this, but play it as if it's the greatest piece ever written. Play with that kind of conviction and belief in what you're doing. And I think that shows a real dimension of artistry and performance.
That's beautiful. Does anyone want to hop in with some other thoughts on that? Some tips for choosing your repertoire?
I think from a vocal perspective, you really want something that I totally agree with what everything Samir said. You have to sort of bring it all in and put yourself into that piece of music and really sell it. But from a vocal perspective, we want to hear what you can do. So if you can put if it has a wide range, I often say we want to hear some lows and we want to hear some highs. So if it's a piece, that's part of, and I don't really have anything against pop music in an audition, but the problem with that is it often stays in one range and we don't really get to hear what the singer can really do. So if you choose a piece that really shows us vocally what you're able to do and how you're able to negotiate a range change, for instance, the passaggio, then we really have an idea of what you can do technically also. Of course, we plan to teach you how to do technical things. So I agree that what we really want to hear is your musicality more than anything. But additionally, I would say some range is always a good thing.
Can I add in one more thing? Sometimes I hear piano auditions, and as a pianist myself, I know that very often teachers sort of prescribe for, let's say, college auditions, play a piece by Bach, usually Prelude and Fugue from the Well-Tempered Clavier, play a classical sonata, a movement, or the whole thing, play a romantic piece, and play something from the 20th century. I know that I always tend to sit up a little bit in my seat when I am hearing a piece from the 20th century that maybe I haven't heard before or wasn't expecting. Yeah, I know that a lot of young pianists might offer the Prokofiev Third Sonata, for instance, but if they were to play the 6 small pieces of Schoenberg, it makes me kind of sit up a little bit because it tells me that maybe they are curious about that time period or that style of music or that. So I say be a little bit, feel free to be a little bit adventurous and to really, if you have the option, if there's an open piece, to share something that, again, you believe in.
That's great. From the top point of view, since we are looking to hear pieces that we would put on the radio to showcase you, for the show, it's also so much about story. And what has really stood out, especially this summer, have been pieces that students have taken on. Sometimes it's during quarantine, and the story behind it of why they chose to take this on, what it means during this time. They are writing to us, they're writing essays, and we're interviewing them about it. But you can hear it in the piece, the meaning behind it, their connection to it. One of the most amazing and it was hard to keep it together moments just recently this summer was a young lady who was auditioning for the first time with us. She started playing violin. I can't remember which movement of a Goldman piece. And it's a little rarer to have in an audition, which is always refreshing, as we've said. And she started playing, and then I was reviewing her application. And when she was getting into her most memorable moments, she said her father had passed away just a few years earlier. And this was the first piece that she took on. He would accompany her. He was a pianist. And this was the first piece that she took on without him. And, just in that moment, she was already playing so beautifully, but it really did just make me listen differently. And when her piece ended and we were speaking, we talked about it a little bit, and she was able to articulate things about how she just played and the journey that was so parallel to her learning this piece and her music making and what she was going through in her life. We hear it in the music, and we also get the opportunity now, I think, in how the world is changing, and just how concert performance is changing. We get the opportunity to hear your story. So I just want students to know that your story of why you've taken on a piece, what it means to you, your journey, even if you're halfway through your journey of learning this, it makes a difference, and we can hear it, and we want to know that process for you, because it tells us a lot about what kind of student you would be, or for us From the Top, how much you're going to help people connect to you and to music on the show. So opening that up too, is there anything with storytelling that anyone might provide some insight into? Or did I just talk everyone's ears off and answered everything there?
I think what you said, absolutely wonderful. What a great thing to be part of, and doing that on From the Top. Of course, when we're listening to college auditions, we're not necessarily looking for concert-ready performance. We want it to be great performance, but we're looking more at potential, whereas you're looking more at the finished performance. Of course, there's potential in there, and we all realize that, but so it's quite a different animal. And, if this is the right way to take the idea of story, I would say that one of the most important things for me, and I think Erin already suggested this, is when you're auditioning, play your music as if you really believe in it and that you are telling a story through the music. Because, of course, a live audition might only be 10 or 15 minutes. And it's like how those 10 or 15 minutes can change your life forever. It's quite daunting. But, never go in trying to second guess what the people listening to you want to hear. That's like us as professionals when you're playing a concert. There's no point trying to second guess what the audience wants. You can't, that's impossible. But it's not a question of somebody listening and liking what you do. It's a question of somebody listening and being in awe of the way you play what you do. Because going back to Bach, everyone has a very strong opinion about how Bach should be played, and we're all right. But we might not like somebody else's version. That's not the point. The point is that you play it with conviction and show that you've studied it, that you understand how it fits together. You play it with a sound that you want. If it's more romantic or more classical, more baroque, doesn't matter. But you show that you have that commitment and artistry in what you do. And then you show a potential teacher or a college, university, what you might be capable of doing in the future. So always be yourself and play yourself, and never second guess what the listener is looking for.
Beautiful. Well, let me kind of end this repertoire question with, it's going to be an A or B from all of you. So when someone is really coming down to that choice, what is more impressive? What's going to do it for you as an adjudicator? Hearing a piece that is technically difficult, or easier rep that's played well by that performer? Samir, which one?
Hands down for me, it's played well. Let's say a simpler piece that is played well. As we all know, that's one of the great challenges of playing something like Mozart, right? But to play Mozart really, really well is incredibly difficult. And so as someone listening to an audition, it's really impressive when somebody can do something like that.
Great. Daniel?
B, hands down.
Erin?
B, absolutely.
And Ivo?
Guess what? B. Yes.
We didn't discuss this beforehand. I knew what everyone's answers were going to be, and we just want to drive this home. We want to hear the simpler rep played really well, rather than, we can go listen to, I could rattle off artists now and then I would be in trouble later. So we can hear some technical, dancing on things in other places. We want to hear you. Very good.
Jump in really quickly.
Yeah.
This just came to mind in terms of, especially when I'm listening to people auditioning for like a string quartet workshop. Sometimes you also want to hear that generosity of spirit. Someone can have all the chops in the world, but if they haven't considered, for instance, if it's a concerto and how they fit in with the orchestra and how many colors you can play with, that's the kind of stuff you have to consider once everything is settled in technically. And so if you're struggling with the technique and you can't get that kind of the music out, it definitely I think colors the performance using color again. So yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you. That's very important. This is a very important point, everyone.
And can I just say one thing too?
Yeah.
When I'm also a choral director. That's my primary job. And I always tell my students that I'm looking for you to be a nice person too. You need to be cooperative. You need to be good to work with. And I rank those things in order. I rank them basically by sight reading ability, quality of voice, and if they're a nice person. And I tell them that that's what I'm looking for. Someone I can work with. So that's also really important in the collaborative process.
Absolutely. That actually brings us into our next topic that we're going to talk about. Are these essays or interviews? Sometimes we have both. Sometimes the interview portion is just walking into a room and salutations and how that goes. But it is becoming more and more common to have to submit some sort of statement or stand there after or before you've played and talk to whoever's in this day and age on the other side of the screen. So I wanted to throw in there, we talked a little bit about how storytelling is so important from the top for the fact that we have stories told on the air. So it's very important when we're reading. And just one thing for us that I think everyone here is going to unanimously agree on is when you have to apply and it's a written thing, don't make anything your parents fill out your essays or applications, any part of it. No parents allowed. And even if it's the most beautiful answers in the world, we can tell. We could, within 3 sentences, we know who's written it. So go for yourself. Even if you feel like you won't be able to express things in a way that you think the person reading wants to hear them, we would much rather hear your voice always. It tells us more than you could possibly imagine. So going off of that, are there things that, like Erin, you just said, that kindness of collaboration, other things in either an interview or an essay portion that really catch your ear or catch your eye when you're going through auditionees?
I guess I just want to know that they're excited to learn, that they want to be part of the process. They want to be part of our, in my case, university, part of our department. They want to learn from me. They want to learn from my colleagues. They want to learn from their peers. I just want to know that they're excited about it.
Mm-hmm. Yes, very important.
I'll just jump in real quick. Yes, that they have a curiosity about them, that they are open as a student to whatever not only me, but my colleagues sometimes are teaching them. And I think that, and also I liked one of the things that Erin mentioned about being a nice person, because, it's been often said sometimes that an audition begins the moment you enter the room. And while I have my ears on the audition itself, the musical perspective, I'm judging from one aspect, I will notice, did they walk in and did they say thank you to the doctor that may have opened the door for them? Did they look at me in the eye and say good morning when I said good morning to them? Just these little tiny things, right? But yeah, I'm looking for curiosity in a student, and a sense of empathy with the world around them, that they have a reason why they are doing what they're doing, and why they want to share their music with other people.
That's great.
I think I always want to see personality, and it doesn't matter if you're introvert or extrovert. I'm quite introvert by nature, but I know I have a personality, and extroverts, of course, tend to show their personality more. But I want to know when somebody comes in the room if I can get on with them, if I feel they can fit into the school. Every schools are different. But, it's a large part of what we're looking for. Obviously, we're looking for wonderful players. That's the first and foremost. And players we feel we can help on their paths to stardom, hopefully. But I'm interested in the person. Will I get on with that person? Will they fit into my studio? Will we get on? Will they get on with the rest of my studio? And that's a very, very personal thing. And that's something I think students should consider when they're going to audition for various colleges and for various teachers. Very important thing. If you're uncomfortable in a situation, you're not going to perform or learn to your best ability. So it's something for me that's very important. So I just call it generally personality. I love personality.
That's good.
Yeah, I agree with what everyone said. It just, in terms of you're auditioning, whether it be for a summer festival or so, you're becoming a part of a certain community, and so we're not asking. For instance, I loved how Ivo said introverts versus extroverts. I find myself introverted as well. We're not asking you to put on a show and pretend to be something you're not, but just walk in there and just be true to who you are. And if we feel like you'll fit into the community, it's a two-way street. So we're not asking you to pretend to be something you're not.
I think I just chime in one more thing. Ivo kind of hit on this. I think, and as you're auditioning in other places too, make sure you mesh with that private teacher. I think that is part of, they're auditioning you, but you're also auditioning them. And especially, I know from a voice perspective, it's so critical to have that connection with that teacher because it is so very personal. So make sure that your personalities mesh.
And sometimes, just Erin, following up with what you're saying, sometimes the teacher you mesh with might not be the star teacher at a conservatory or have some famous career behind them, but maybe that's the right teacher for you. And I think that's totally important.
And just to follow on from that very quickly, that's why it's so important for all of you who are auditioning, be yourself. And again, I said it earlier, don't try and be something you're not. Be yourself, because that way you get an honest feedback.
Absolutely. Beautifully said. Trying to get into your adjudicator's mind it's useless. We're people too, and we wanting to see you succeed, we can't, there's that kind of emptiness that happens when someone's trying to just say what you want to hear or you want to read. We want to get to know you. We already think you're exceptional just because you're ending up in front of us. That the bar is already set. So beautifully said all. We have another question from a BUTI student. They asked, what experience is helpful today when all concerts, performances, live auditions, this is making me sad just reading through this, and live programs are on hold? What is the best non-performance experience you think a student can gain right now? Does anyone want to start with that?
I'll chip in if you like something. Of course, playing is very limited, but when I was a student, I just finished studying my undergrad in London, and I was having a chat with the cello professor who taught me chamber music, and I was worried. I wanted to be in a string quartet, and I wasn't yet, and I was moaning about it. He said, look, as a musician, the most important thing you can do is experience life. Don't just focus on music, focus on other things as well. In this lockdown period, we've had lots of time to ourselves, hopefully to practice, but also to read books or read on your iPad or whatever you read on, to explore other things. Look at the news, read about art, read about music, listen to music, open up your minds to other things. This is a wonderful opportunity to open our minds to things outside of what we would normally be doing. So that would be my encouragement.
That's great.
Yeah, I think that's so beautifully said. I couldn't have said it better. I recently read this little story in the New York Times about Yo-Yo Ma, and when he was a young cellist, having a chance to meet Casals, and his advice to Yo-Yo Ma, young Yo-Yo Ma, who I guess had interest in baseball, said, always make time for baseball. And I think that is just a beautiful sentiment, that trying to be a complete person and trying to live life to the fullest will only make your music better.
Fabulous.
Yeah, I can't agree more. And I think we've had to recalibrate during this very strange time. Our priorities have shifted. I mean, as a young musician, I was told to practice, practice, practice. In graduate school, that's all I did. I was sleeping and breathing music all the time. And as I've gotten older, I've learned that my life isn't just about music. It's very important, but travel makes me a better musician. Reading makes me a better musician. And it makes me a much more well-rounded person as well. So I think to have other interests just makes you more interesting.
That's great.
Yeah, one of the blessings, I think, of this time has really been to revisit a lot of things that I used to love to do, but professional life. And I know a lot of the students out there, same thing, where they're running to sports practices and whatnot, is kind of recalibrating to see how can you balance those things that really kind of keep you happy, but aren't necessarily getting you to the next step. Because if you can figure that out early, then your life is going to be super fulfilling. And so I think that's something, just jumping on what everyone said.
Absolutely. A little thing I'll add in there in having some discussions about this. If you're going into college soon, or you're looking at other online classes that you can take in school, it's not a bad thing to look at the other aspects of what your life and career as a musician will be, like business classes. Mm-hmm. In the world that we're in right now, maybe take some computer programming. So, you might be finding also in this time, when I practice, I have this challenge. And I took this class on how to create an app, and maybe I can create an app that can help with this challenge. Where the territory is completely unwritten, and there's these other skills that we can gain that might shift our entire experience, just career-wise or college-wise or coursework-wise. So, all the things that seem boring or not artistic or not you, maybe give them a chance.
I really wish I would have taken graphic design classes in college. That would have served me well.
And also add in anything to do with your physical well-being, physical, emotional, and mental well-being. Because, in my day, we didn't really think much about that. And it's so easy to get physical injuries or to feel emotionally down about your playing when a performance hasn't gone quite so well. We need to be very strong. Some of us might not look like athletes, but we are athletes in what we do when we play. And you have to keep your body fit. So anything that you can explore that way, I think, would be very valuable.
Very good point. Great. Well, let's move on. We have one more question here. And this kind of leads into our college and university. Are there any specific tips that you have for auditions for colleges? And also, Ivo, I know you can speak to any differences with international either colleges or camps. If there's anything kind of for that mind shift going into those realms. Erin and Dan, would you want to start with the college tips?
So just in general for auditioning?
Yeah, if you're going for the college auditions, how it might differ, or maybe some extra step for someone going to university.
Just make sure you communicate with the teacher, communicate with the office, and make sure that they have all of your information in plenty of time. And make sure, normal universities are pretty clear about what they want on a website. So make sure you've read all of that information and have everything ready to go. Whether it's on Zoom, virtual, or whether it's in person, just make sure that all the information is at your fingertips. And if you have any questions, we just ask that you communicate. I think that's the biggest thing. There's an email, there's a phone, give us a call. I get a lot of emails from students who say, hey, I'm just trying to get some information about auditioning or whatnot. And it's very simple nowadays, I feel like, to get a hold of a faculty member. Even though we don't work in the summer, most of us are still working. So, please reach out and just let us know what your questions are. If you have some concerns or if you're nervous about certain aspects, we just really want to hear from you.
Yeah, and piggybacking on that, and addressing things that have been brought up earlier in this discussion, if possible, make direct contact with the applied teacher that you're interested in studying with. Your audition slot we get a lot, but if you actually take a short sample lesson, that's a way for you to actually see if your personalities mesh, if the teaching styles mesh. And Erin, I think you're the one who said that they're auditioning us as well, right? It's a two-way street, and that's a really important avenue to explore if you can. In terms of colleges as well, especially something like a school of music in a university, just also make sure that you have your ducks in a row academically, right? Here at BU, for instance, you have to make sure you play well here, but you also have to make sure that you get through central admissions. Schools are different that way, and so if you're really interested in a school, just make sure that you know what goes into what you have to do to succeed in that application process.
Fabulous. And Ivo, anything with college and with the idea of an international camp or college?
Yeah, I would encourage anybody to go abroad and study. Either study full-time as a master's student, perhaps. Definitely go to summer camps and festivals abroad. I grew up in the UK. It was very easy to hop over to Germany or France or wherever, probably as far as from Houston to Dallas. In America, it's a little bit tricky because you have an ocean between you and anywhere else. But I'd really encourage you, and don't be scared. I think doing any audition, if you have an audition at any university here in this country, is probably quite scary. If you add into that international travel, that can add to the anxiety. But I'd really encourage you, because if you can go abroad, you learn about different styles of music making. There's different ways of doing things. And I think, obviously, remember that if you are applying for a college abroad, remember the language. I was lucky when I studied in Germany. My teacher spoke fluent German, French, English, and Italian, which was very fortunate for me. But if you have to do academic work, you might have to learn a language. If you know that language already, what a wonderful opportunity for you to go and study somewhere. And I definitely agree with both of what Dan and Erin said about, choosing a teacher. I happened to study in Germany with an Italian viola teacher because that's where he was. I'd have gone anywhere in the world. He happened to be in Germany. That's where I went. Of course, it was to do with the school as well, but that was secondary to the actual teacher, and that was a master's level. Look at academic requirements, because they could be very different. Some institutions here are very highly academic, some are less academic, so of course you would be familiar with that. It's quite possible if you went to London, the academics might not be quite so stringent as they are here. That might suit you, it might not suit you. So really make sure you know what you're signing up for when you're auditioning. For me, the teacher will be the most important thing, but then look very closely at what the institution offers you and if it suits you. But get really excited about going abroad. It's wonderful. I mean, I moved from Europe over to America, and that was wonderful. I've been very happy here. Great experience. And I would encourage any American to do the opposite.
Wonderful. Thank you. Well, we're just about at the end of our time, and I'm wondering if you each could say kind of your final closing thoughts. It could be a recap of what you felt was a most important tip for a student to remember, or just any last, little things for them to take on as they venture into this brand new world of all different sorts of auditions, which I'm sure will continue to evolve throughout the next year. But any final thoughts, Samir?
It's been said a lot today, but I would just reiterate, be authentic, be who you are, try to be the best version of yourself as much as you can, but really just be who you are and let that come out in your playing and in your engagement with the people you're playing for.
Wonderful. Erin?
Yeah, I'd say the same thing. Just bring your best, absolute best to any audition or Zoom audition and show us who you are, because that's really what we want to see. And we, of course, want to see your personality too. We want to get to know you a little bit in that regard. So
Wonderful. Daniel?
Yeah, I think the key word today is authenticity. So that's really important. And pair that with preparedness, authenticity and preparedness. And no matter what the obstacles are, technologically speaking, or whatever, those are the two most important things you can bring to an audition.
Well, Ivo?
How can I follow that? I completely agree with everything. Be yourself, be true to yourself. Don't try and not be yourself. I like Erin's idea about communication. Be communicative. Even if you're nervous, don't sort of withdraw into your shell. Just be open. And sometimes auditionees have admitted they're nervous. That's fine. We don't mind. We're there to help and support you. We want you to show your best, and we want to make you as comfortable as possible. So be yourself, be true to yourself, and play your best.
Wonderful. Well, thank you all. This was a fun conversation for us. It'll be great for everyone else who sees it, but I had a fun time just in general. So thank you very much for your time and for sharing all of your wisdom. Thank you again to Boston University Tanglewood Institute for partnering with us. And from the top, thank you for listening, and we will see you all soon. Take care.